tell you the story of I Spit on Your Grave 2, a 2013 American revenge horror movie. This movie follows an aspiring model, Katie, who lives on her own in New York. Desperate to update her modeling portfolio, she innocently accepts an offer to have new photos taken. However, the experience quickly turns into her worst nightmare of abuse, torture, and kidnapping. In the end, what really happened? Does Katie exact her revenge on her captors? Did they receive the punishment they deserve? Watch till the end to know the mind-blowing truth. There will be spoilers ahead, keep an eye out and be cautious. At the beginning of the movie, we see Katie Carter, a Missouri native who works part-time in a New York City restaurant. She meets her agent, Sharon, who tells her that she needs to update her portfolio in order to get modeling jobs. It will cost Katie more money, but she is determined to take the risk. On her way out, luckily, Katie sees a free photography poster and records the phone number. Katie makes ends meet by working 2 jobs and lives in a downtown apartment complex. Jason, her next-door neighbor, is someone she knows, and he helps her around the flat. Katie peruses her old portfolio and, out of desperation, decides to contact the photo ad. When Katie answers the phone, a man tells her to email her picture to a man named Ivan. Katie is overjoyed when she receives a confirmation with the photoshoot schedule and location. The next day, Katie travels to the address given to her. Upon entering, she notices a lingerie-clad model being photographed in the studio. When she sees the studio's interior and condition, her excitement suddenly fades away. Inside, she meets the photographic siblings, Ivan, Georgie, and Nikolai for the first time. As he supports his brother, Georgie openly expresses curiosity and adoration for Katie. Suddenly, Ivan takes a break from photographing Katie and informs her that her images aren't coming out good because of her attire. He then suggests that she display more skin in the images to make them look more sexy. This makes her feel uncomfortable. So Katie walks out of the building, despite Ivan's persuasion that showing skin is normal in their industry. 2 days later, Georgie returns to Katie's flat to offer her a flash drive which contains her images. She reluctantly accepts it, but because she is uncomfortable with him, she does not welcome him in. Later on, Georgie spends that night looking through his copy of Katie's photos, which intensifies his feelings for her. At midnight, Katie is awakened in bed by the sound of camera shutters. She is shocked to discover Georgie secretly filming her across the bed, so she electrocutes him in self-defense. As she rushes to the door, Georgie is just in time to halt her. He brings Katie back into the room and hits her on the head repeatedly until she collapses and gets weak. Georgie gags and ties her to prevent her from making a suspicious noise, preparing his evil plan on Katie. Jason hears Katie's muffled screams from below and rushes down to check on her. He's taken aback by what he sees when he walks in. All of a sudden, Georgie appears from a corner as he enters and begins stabbing him to death. Katie stares at Jason's lifeless body as Georgie pushes himself on her. After his unforgivable act, Georgie understands the seriousness of his crimes. He sobs in a corner, while contacting his brother to tell him that he has done something wrong. Sometimes later, Nikolai and Ivan arrive at Katie's flat, and discovers her crying in a corner. The brothers start cleaning up the evidence, and then forces ketamine to Katie, to knock her out. Few days later, Katie is found unclothed and tied in a rundown basement. Nikolai takes advantage of her insensibility, by forcing himself on her. When Georgie sees his brother forcing Katie, he immediately stops him. Hearing their noises, Ivan enters the basement to stop them from arguing about Katie. Before letting Katie spend the night alone, he tells his little brothers to go upstairs. Following day, Ivan pours a bucket of cold water on Katie to wash her. When she becomes hostile against Georgie, who prepares to bathe her, the other two approach her to push ketamine on her once more. Georgie approaches her again, this time softly wiping her skin. Soon after, Katie discovers a small covered window that gives her hope for her escape. Katie forces the substance out of her system by making herself gag, until she spits it out in order to stay awake. After a while, Georgie returns to the basement to dress Katie in a crimson dress. Georgie unlocks the handcuffs to allow the garments to fit properly, which gives a chance for Katie to escape. Katie slaps Georgie with a pail and smacks his head when he turns his back. Katie climbs out of the window to freedom while he lies on the floor. However, she has found herself in a foreign city with no one eager to assist her. She notices signs in a different language and alphabetic characters, which shocks and perplexes her even more. Katie then sees a police officer and approaches him for help. She met a detective named Kirill who takes her to the station safely. He informs her that she is in Bulgaria. Katie has no idea how she got there, and her most recent memory is of being in New York. Later on, Anna Petov, a lady who works for a women's organization center, enters the room while Katie being questioned. She consoles Katie by informing her that she operates a shelter for women who have gone through similar ordeals. Doubting her, Katie requests Anna to take her directly to the American consulate. However, Anna urges her to bath before going to the American consulate and drives Katie to her residence. After everything Katie has been through, the welcoming interior of the mansion provides her with a sense of peace and comfort. Anna lovingly guides Katie downstairs saying she has extra clothes, but Katie is once again confronted with her worst dread. The familiar sense of danger strikes her before she really realizes where she is. To her shock, Anna is the boy's mother, and her benevolence was merely a ruse. Anna even slaps her, before Ivan brings Katie back to the mattress. Later that night, Valko, their family friend, comes to meet Katie. As if calling Katie derogatory names wasn't enough, he begins to bully and threaten her. He then electrocutes her repeatedly, including her private parts, and forces himself on the poor woman. Upstairs, Anna turns on the music, to drown out Katie's screaming. After Valko has left, Katie sobs and lies lifeless in the basement. Katie collects all her power to softly slap Ivan in the face, as he comes to check on her. He is enraged that she still has no fear of them, so he beats her mercilessly, leaving her wounded and bloodied. She then notices the boys excavating a hole in the basement. Katie had lost all her strength to even react to the trio's plan to bury her alive. Before placing Katie into the box, Nikolay rips off her dress and throws it to Georgie. Georgie then places Katie's crucifix necklace inside, before covering it and burying her. Despite the fact that Georgie is to blame for the mayhem, he expresses regret for his conduct. Katie could only cry inside due to the injuries sustained. She was unable to shout or move. Just as Katie assumed it was her final resting place, the ground beneath Katie collapses, releasing her from the box. She tumbles into the sewer system below, where she recovers over time. Katie then finds a sewer that goes to a local church where she starts to steal her food. She meets the rector, Father Dimov, who discovers her taking food from his pantry. Katie declines the priest's offer of food from his table, and refuses to spend time with him. He allows her to take food, clothing and a Bible instead as a result of her decision. Next day, Katie emerges from the sewer to make her way to the American embassy. However, as she approaches the building, she decides to turn around and decides to stay. Katie then reaches the church, much to Father Dimov's amazement. Because the priest sees her as a crime victim, he gives assistance and support. He advises they should contact the authorities, but Katie prevents him from doing so. When Katie leaves, Father Dimov discovers that she has left an open Bible page with the words, "Vengeance is mine." The following day, Katie begins her plan for the vengeance. Her first act will be to steal money from Anna's residence, in order to purchase supplies and weapons. She succeeds in this and moves on to her next ruse. Katie waits for Georgie to arrive at a restaurant, then walks past his table and places his drink on the table. Georgie drinks his drink a few moments later, and discovers an item within the cup. Georgie discovers Katie's crucifix pendant in his drink, and realizes she is still alive. Katie quietly shows herself around a corner, and Georgie pursues her to make sure she's real. Katie successfully draws Georgie into the sewers, where he receives the punishment he deserves. Katie appears out of nowhere clutching Georgie's neck with both hands. Meanwhile, Father Dimov contacts Kirill to advise him about Katie's condition, and her resolve to seek vengeance on her assailants. Kirill learns more about Katie from him, and the detective feels she isn't fully protected. Georgie awakens in the sewers to face his doom, only to find Katie threatening him with a switchblade. While Georgie is tied to ropes on the wall, she inflicts multiple wounds on him. Katie spreads feces on Georgie's wounds, which will create infection. He screams incessantly, but Katie finds it soothing. After days of hardship, Katie has finally discovered a sense of accomplishment. Georgie's discomfort gives her a small sense of satisfaction. Following night, Nikolay is out clubbing. When an unknown person leaves a drink on his table, he takes it. However, this causes him to feel numb and disoriented, and he realizes the drink contains an illicit narcotic. He then notices Katie from afar, but he is too disoriented to consider if she is real or not. Afterwards, he runs to the restroom, and discovers an odd surprise. Katie steps across the bathroom and shows herself, prompting Nikolay to vomit. Katie strikes Nikolay while on his knees, smashing his head to the ground. She then drowns him in a toilet that hasn't been flushed. Katie walks out of the club unnoticed after yet another successful vengeance. The following morning, Valko attends the church, and notices Katie from a nearby corner. Before pursuing her, he orders his family to return home immediately. Katie has the perfect opportunity to hit Valko with a rock as he runs to the basement. When he regains consciousness, he is strapped to a bed frame and encircled by metal cables. She starts his agony by shocking him in various regions of his body, including his privates. Katie installs electric cords to the bed frame, and sets the regulator to a high voltage to kill Valko, while he screams in anguish. Meanwhile, Anna discovers her home to be in shambles with her belongings strewn around. She then drawn to the basement by the sound of her music playing. All of a sudden, Katie appears from behind and pushes Anna into the pit, knocking her out. After regaining consciousness, Anna's face flushes with terror as she sees Georgie suffering from multiple wounds. She screams as she sees her kid bloodied and defenseless. In the meantime, Ivan visits their home and is astonished to find it deserted. The music also tempts him to investigate the basement. He was shocked when he discovers the hole, hollow and empty. In pursuit of answers, he ventures into the sewers, where he discovers his brother chained to a wall. As he tries to rouse Georgie up, Katie smacks him in the head, knocking him out. After some time, Ivan wakes up bound to a table with Katie beside him. Before locking the box, Katie removes Georgie's gag to display her son's slow death. Katie then concentrates on harming Ivan, employing a system that crushes his private regions, while making him aware of her anguish. But at that moment, Kirill arrives and holds his gun up to Katie. Using this opportunity, Ivan takes Katie from behind and attempts to strangle her, but Kirill shoots him in the head, kills him. It allows Katie to flee and regain her freedom, while Kirill arrests Anna for the crimes committed by her family. The movie ends with Katie finally pleased with her vengeance, seeks safety in the American embassy.